Hi guys, well, happy St. Patrick's Day. Okay, excuse the mess, spring cleaning at the house, moving stuff around. I posted a video, I think last Friday, where I was discussing about sharpening a knife. I got a lot of requests for that, and so I posted it about that. And from that I have got, excuse the aircraft, I've also got quite a few questions about tool steel. What kind of knife steel do you like, Blackie? And how about D2? And how about Carbon V? And how about all these steels that I call voodoo steels? So I thought we'd just have a sit down talk for just a second on my honest opinion of knife steels, okay? But I'm going to tell you, I am not an expert. I'm someone who uses knives. I am, and despite looking at my rather large tub of pocket knives and large collection of knives hanging up, I'm not truly a collector. I'm somebody that uses knives for hands-on experience. I'm not interested in pedigrees. I'm not interested in, name brands and stuff like that. I'm interested of, is it a good design? Does it fit good in the hand? Does it function what it's supposed to do? And how difficult or easy is it to sharpen in the field? Those are my criteria. Now, as anyone who's followed my channel know, I have become very fond of WCknives. I think William makes one of the finest knives in the world. And you're going to see a couple of them knives in here. But I never had a custom knife until I was doing living history reenactment, and I had gotten a knife from Billy Watson of a historic time period. And to be honest, I got no clue what kind of steel that's in it. I'm not going to be showing it in this video. I have showed it in past videos. But I simply asked him for this style of knife. I showed him the pictures, the diagrams. He, did the research, and he made it. And I honestly don't know what kind of steel it was. But I can tell you, it's never held an edge that well. And I know how to sharpen a knife. And it has simply never been a great steel. That was one of my downfalls, I guess you'd call it, with a lot of the custom type stuff. Because there were a lot of guys in the living history and stuff that had custom knife by this and custom knife by that. And this is a such and such steel and all like that. I never took the time to research it. I was interested in results and performance more than a name on a blade. Okay? And so Billy makes a very fine knife, but this knife just simply never did what I wanted. And so I was kind of dissatisfied, happy with the result as far as for a living history knife and utilizing it, but it did not inspire me into the custom knife world. It really didn't. So let me scoot you up a little. Okay, now that we got you a little closer, now I can lean back and sit down. Let's talk about this. What I want in a field knife, a bushcraft, a woodscraft knife, is I want the steel to hold an edge well, not be brittle, so that whenever I'm having to cut into something, I don't want it to chip or crack the edge. And you can get really hard steel that will, okay? And I want it to be easy to sharpen and maintain in the field and hone in the field, okay? Let me give you a case in point. When I was a young man, the Buck 110, they were 440C. C is at 440 stainless with chromium added, so they called it C. Chromium made it a very, very hard blade. And so up till about 1991, it was 440C. They held an edge super well. I mean, they came out of the box sharp now, and they were tough and durable. And they used to do a demonstration Like at Christmas time, we'd go to Sears, you'd have a representative, singing the praises of Buck Knives in the sporting goods department about how, shouldn't you buy your husband, doesn't he deserve a Buck 110, things like that. And they'd do demonstrations, and they would take a big block of wood, and they'd lay a 16-penny nail up there and take that Buck 110 and put it up there and baton it with a wooden mallet or a hammer handle and cut the nail in half, like cut it 3 or 4 times, and then take this blade and sit there and slice paper with it. It was that hard. Heck, it was like a chisel. A lot of chisels got a lot of chromium in them for that reason. And it held an edge super well. The disadvantage is once it did get dull, we didn't have diamond hones like we have today. And so once it got dull, the pocket Arkansas stones and things we had today would just slide on it. I mean, you might as well be trying to sharpen it with a rock off the ground. I mean, it just, And so I got an A in auto mechanics in high school in I think it was my 11th grade year, and I never got up under a car, not once. I was sitting in the break room the whole time sharpening Buck pocket knives because the teacher had a huge collection of Buck knives, the big belt knives and pocket knives and everything, and they'd been part of a huge display that you should buy to put on display like at a gun shop or something, a knife shop. And none of them were sharp. They were meant for the display, but they were real, they just hadn't been sharpened. Right? He wanted them all sharpened. And so I knew how to sharpen them, and I had the proper tools to sharpen at 440C. It was so hard to sharpen, and I had the skill to do it. I got an A, for auto mechanics sharpening knives. But it was because that kind of steel was, yes, durable, but in the field, forget it, you're not sharpening. You'd need a backpack worth of gear in order to resharpen it. Okay? So I don't want a steel that is so hard that I can't retouch it up in the field. I don't want a steel that's brittle. And a lot of times hard is brittle. Now here in our modern days in the 2000s, where we have computers and things making crucible steels and stuff like that, where it is absolutely regulated down to the micron degree in steel manufacture, when you go and get a certain steel, it is of a given quality. And so you can look at charts that the knife makers have put out there a lot of times, like when you're talking about 3V and D2 and all of these different steels, and see how hardness scale, how good they hold an edge, how easy they are to sharpen. And so if you're looking for a custom knife, I recommend looking at that, go and research in that to get an idea of the type of steel. Okay? But for a field knife, okay, like today, this Buck 110, the Buck 110, they changed it after 1981, and it became 425M is the official designation of steel they make Buck 110s out of now. It's easier to sharpen. It holds an edge well, but I can sharpen it with a pocket stone. So those old ones held an edge better, but again, were so tough to sharpen. This I can sharpen and maintain in the field, so it's a better choice. Now for a field knife, I want something that when I begin a heavy project, let's say I have got to whittle an axe handle. I've broken my axe and I have found has to be dry and hard, right? Because I don't want a soft green limb. But I found a piece of hickory over here that's this big a diameter, and I got to whittle it down. That's going to be a day and a night worth of whittling, but could it do it? I want a steel that's not going to dull very fast, so that over the course of an hour or 2 hours of cutting and doing whatever job I'm doing, I don't want it to dull. I want it to be where by the time it starts to get a little bit dull, I need a break anyway. And that's when I'm going to take my break, stop what I'm doing, take a breather, flex the hand, get some blood back in the hand, bring out that little hone and sit there and edge it up and take a 10-15 minute, get me something to drink. Okay, and get back to it and have another 45 minutes to an hour of run time. And that's what I'm looking for in a field knife, something that can do that kind of rotation and not become dull easily through standard work in that amount of time, but allow me to top it up, hone it up if it does, okay? So like I said, buck 110 is that. Now, Mora knife. This is one of the Mora laminates. Had it for 15 years now. When I started my channel, I had this knife. Okay, so that's 2008. This was back whenever they were making the laminate steel. I don't even know if they still do anymore. But it was a hard steel inside that was like clamshell with a softer steel. Hard held an edge the best, but it was brittle and would snap. And they laminated it where it's like that, folded over, of a piece of softer steel on the outside. So as it wore down, it stayed good and sharp, but at the same time that softer steel gave it strength and flexibility. See, these type knives like this, great bushcraft knives because they're easy to maintain in the field, they work well, and I recommend everybody getting started out with a Mora, you know, because of the learning curve. They hold an edge well and they're easy to sharpen. And in the learning curve of learning how to sharpen, you're going to make mistakes. And I'd rather you mess up a $20, $30 knife than a $200 knife. Okay? So it's better to start out with this type of knife. And the Moras, I recommend as a starting steel, starting knife. Now, Condor knives. Condor knives are made out of 1075 steel. Okay? 1075 does good in the field. It holds an edge well. It's easy to sharpen. It's easy to hone up in the field. It doesn't rust easy or anything like that. And it holds up well. It's pretty good at taking a little shock and a little torquing where you're doing stuff. It's more of a tool type steel, you know, and so that it can handle. I'm not saying to baton it, no, but I'm talking about when you got to bear down and do something or whatever and it cracks funny or whatever, it can take that. It doesn't chip out and break out easily, okay? So 1075 is a good working steel. It's not sexy, it's not huge and glamorous, but the Condor Bushlore is made out of it, and this is a good entry-level bushcraft knife. Not horribly expensive, holds an edge well, good in the field, and it's a 1075 steel. Now, a little higher up in carbon is 1095 steel. 1095, and like everybody talks about, taking this and hitting it with rock and throwing sparks out of it. 1075, you don't get that many sparks because of the content. 1095, you'll get more sparks. So if you're one of them want to bang on your knife with a rock, try to make a fire in an emergency, 1095 would be better. 1095, this SRO Pathfinder Buffalo Skinner is out of 1095 according to their website. It's just a good working tool steel. A lot of butcher knives and stuff are made out of this kind of steel. Holds an edge well, easy to maintain in the field, doesn't rust easy, doesn't bend easy, doesn't chip out easy. And so that's a decent steel for me, is that 1095. Okay, I got this one last year or so. Remember I talked about it's just like the first butcher knife I ever had for a bushcraft field knife, where I stole it out of Granny's kitchen and got my little tail warmed up for it. But I remembered that knife, and it does a good job, really good job. And these are around the $150 range, so it doesn't have to be a super high dollar custom knife. These are decent, good knives, and it's good steel, okay, for what we're doing. I really like this. And we know everybody in the room my WCknives, the old prototype knife that became the Master Woodsman and the Blackbird, is 01 tool steel. And you've seen me use this for years. I love 01 tool steel in the field. Yes, it can rust. Yes, it does take on a patina. I like the patina, you know. And as long as Miss Pam, I don't let Miss Pam near it with her flits, it'll stay patinaed. Miss Pam can't stand a knife to have a patina on it. She's going to polish it up bright again if you let her. So they make really good field knives. They hold an edge very, very well. But one of the things that I have noticed, and this goes back to the WC knife, is, remember we talked about in that sharpening thing of how steep an angle, okay? A lot of the manufacturers are going to tell you that a knife has to have a certain angle on it. Well, William figured out the best angle, and it's not what's in all the books and everybody else is using. He came up with his own, not just the design of the curve, but the angle it's at. It holds an edge very well, but it leaves some meat there in that edge so that it's not too thin and brittle, so you can bear down on it and know that that edge isn't going to ripple or bend. I don't have to worry about it going wavy on me if I have to bear down and really, or chop into something. It handles it really well. And so, 01 tool steel. Tool steel tells you right there it's meant for utilizing. It's meant for something that's going to be using to hit, chop, straight, pull. Pressure is going to be applied to this steel in a working environment, you know, as opposed to like a kitchen knife that's a real thin piece of 44 stainless, because it's just going to be slicing up and down on soft stuff like food. Tool steel means I may be cutting hardwood, I may be cutting whatever, and so therefore tool steel, there's a reason we call it tool steel, you know. And so that's what that is, 01 tool steel. I really like 01. And up until just a couple of years ago, if you said, Blackie, if money was no object, what steel would you pick? I'd have said in a heartbeat, 01 tool steel. You know, oh, but Blackie, it's not. Yeah, I know. I know how to maintain it in the field. It holds an edge. I can hone it up in the field, and it won't let you down. If you take care of it, it won't let you down. 01. Then William went and had, the mad knife wizard had to come up with AEBL. Now, let me explain something to you. '01 tool steel, AEBL. AEBL is a razor blade steel. And when you look in the book of how tough it is, how well it holds an edge and everything else, it ranks very high. But the problem with it is it gets brittle. William worked out a heat treat to cure that problem and made a knife that does better than '01 tool steel. AEBL from William. I can't speak to anybody else. I have not tried any of the other people's AEBL, but William. I have a couple of knives by William and AEBL. It holds an edge better than anything I've ever seen. It doesn't truly dull. Now let me explain that. When I'm using my '01 tool steel and I'm doing a big project like carving a boat paddle, let's say, at point X it'll require just a little more pressure to cut, okay, because it's not getting dull, but it's not as polished, okay. There's a little more friction, and you can tell that when you're bearing down and cutting. Now when you get to it depends on the material, right, what you're cutting, but you will begin to feel it. And if you keep going long enough, it will get dull. And so therefore I would have to sharpen it, not just hone it, but sharpen it. The AEBL, it doesn't ever quit cutting. I haven't been able to make it not cut or get so quote quote dull it wouldn't cut. It kept cutting. You can take other knives. I can take that '01, I can take that Condor or anything else, and we can cut enough, not hone it, not nothing. At point X it'll get where it just slides. It doesn't want to cut, and you got to put, because those teeth are gone, right? Williams AEBL doesn't do that. It keeps cutting. It'll just take a little more effort, but it never gets really dull. And so you'd think, well, man, that stuff's got to be super hard. Remember that buck 110? Here's the voodoo of it. When you go to sharpen it, it's easier to sharpen than that 01 is. It's easier to sharpen than that 440 is, in my opinion. It acts like dead soft when you go to sharpen it. I mean, you sit there and it's like just a couple of strokes and it's right back. Half the sharpening time, half the honing time, and it comes right back. That just, it's magic. I mean, that's the only way I can relate to you guys. Having had and used in my career every piece of junk there is. I was into the survival knives back in the 80s, the Rambo knives and all of the stuff, the K-bars, all of them. I mean, I played with them, I used them, I found out what they were good at, what they weren't, and etc. And I expected a knife to perform from here to here and need sharpening or honing, and actually honing, and then up to here. Okay, now we need to resharpen it again. Okay, and then we could hone it. AEBL it just defies all that. It just keeps going. I have carved on gnarly oak a lot. I have carved spoons. I have cut, split, stripped bark, done all of this stuff, and used it for a year without sharpening or honing it. Let that sink in. It's me, guys. Me out here doing stuff in the woods, of making the tent peg, doing demonstrations for you guys, everything. Plus taking it in the kitchen to use it to help cut up dinner, because I prefer to use my knives and all of that and not have to sharpen it. Yeah, I'll get around to honing it. I went a full year without sharpening it and it was still cutting. You know, I could still cut paper with it after a year. Now, is it magic? No. It will eventually wear down, and I know that. But I'm just telling you, AEBL by William, it's something else, guys. It really is. I'm not doing this a promotion of it. You ask my opinion. I'm just telling you the fact. So whenever he made my Blackbird, which is this, he made it in that AEBL. And so whenever they went to make the Greyman, there was no question on what they were going to make it out of, that AEBL. And it holds an edge. It's tough. It sharpens easy. It won't rust in the field. And so, to answer the questions that all of this brings up, if it is a pocket knife, okay, the Rough Riders are in 440A. Hold a good edge, cut well, do really good. So 440A with a proper heat treat does a good feel knife for a pocket knife. Got no problem. Yes, you can get other stuff, but I'm just giving you the thing. And the Rough Rider knives are not expensive. So if you like the old case type, take a look at them. Good steel for that. From anybody else other than William, I'll say 01 tool steel is what I prefer. So if you're a knife maker and you want to make me a knife and have me field test it, make it out of 01. Unless there is some voodoo steel you're known for and want to send it, that's great. But 01 is my choice for steel by anybody but William. And then if it's a William Collins knife, get AEBL. All of his knives are good, but AEBL by far. I mean, that is the field knife of choice. It comes down to the thing. What's the job it's going to be asked to do? If it's a standard bushcraft knife, like I said, I want a robust edge over a razor edge. I want a knife I can maintain in the field. So for me, that's 01 tool steel, 1095, 1075, 440A, yeah, depending on the knife. I don't like a full-size belt knife in the 440s. That's getting out of its wheelhouse. As long as it's a pocket knife or a small blade, even if it's a small fixed blade, but small, yeah, okay. When you grow it on up into the size and thickness of a bushcraft knife, no. Go 01, 1095, 1075, or if you can afford it, William Collins AEBL. Those are my choices. Those are my preferences. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. And I'm not going to call names, I'm not trying to point anybody out. But there's a lot of channels to get up there and they'll tell you, well, yes, I've used D2 extensively and I think it's inferior to carbon 5B. If you're that, go right ahead. I don't have that kind of experience in those knives. I couldn't afford those knives. I'm a real, honest to God, redneck from Alabama that had to live on a beer budget like you guys. And I couldn't afford it. That's the reason Moras, Condors, you know, things like that was my knives. And getting with William has opened my eyes at the quality of what a custom knife can do. And if you're looking for steels, like I said, if you're wanting to order a thing off the shelf to try it and start out, but beer budget, get a Mora. Can you afford a little bit more? Get a Condor, either like a Kephart or the Bushlore, or maybe one of the pterosaurs or whatever. Those are, a lot of the big name guys run that, or Garberg or something like that. Okay, somewhere in the $150 range, go look at the Pathfinder knives. They're good quality steel knives. Step on up, I want a custom, talk to William. That's my advice in the knife world. Just my humble opinion. Hope you've enjoyed this, guys. If you have, please hit that like, share down there, and leave me a comment. I'd really appreciate it. And if there's some knife steel that you prefer, put it down there. I'm willing to learn. But I can only tell you what I've got a lot of experience with. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.